Hello.
Hey,
All right.
hello. How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm very hot.
Tell us about it.
I'm gonna.
I've hated this week. I've been sweating my box off.
I know, right. I know. I'm just thinking. I'm gonna try the fan on me, and if it's really loud, I'll turn it off and I'll use my old-fashioned fan.
Well, I'll try mine and all, and then I'll see what it's
But I
like.
mean, obviously, if it's going to cause a problem for people to hear us, I'll turn it off and I'll just use my old lady one.
And
So, so I don't know if people hear. Can they hear me and Glyn on here? Can anybody who's just joining us give us a thumbs up if they can hear us? Because
since last time,
say that again.
have you been all right since last time we spoke?
Just hot. Just
Uh,
hot. I know.
I'm
It's so hot.
shut. Wind is shut.
Okay, I'll try it off. It's quite loud in mine. I'm going to turn it off actually. Oh yeah, somebody said they can hear us. Okay, I'm going to try without mine for a bit and see how I get on.
Can you hear your mic? You're all right.
I can hear you a bit better. Say that again.
If you hear your mic fine, I can turn it off.
I can hear you fine as long as you can hear me. Yeah, so we'll see how we go. Well, hello to everybody it's 6:02, just starting to join our call, our Instagram live this Monday evening. And if you've just joined us, you'll have heard myself and our very special guest, Glyn Rowell. Is it Rowell or Rowell?
Rowel.
Rowell. Coming on.
Pause whatever you want.
Complaining about how hot we are. But I promise you that is not what we're going to be talking about for the bulk of the conversation. So for people who are just joining, a huge welcome. My name's Kate and I am the director of The Big Draw. And we probably about every other week since, well, when we started doing these a couple of years ago through pandemic. We were doing them almost weekly. We've carried them on and we do them about once every other week now. We do Instagram lives and it's my pleasure and absolute privilege, very lucky to be able to get to talk and meet really interesting, talented people like Glyn. So from across all different disciplines and sectors. So artists, designers, makers, thinkers, scientists, really the sort of the whole spectrum of creativity. And if you're wondering, the link is visual literacy, the link is drawing, it's marking, sketching, and looking at making marks with meaning and how that would interpret across different sectors and different disciplines. So that's really the way in, the way we met you really, wasn't it, Glyn? And I think actually it was Sandra, one of my colleagues, who spotted you and on the Channel 4 programme, Drawers Off.
Drawers off.
Drawers Off, which sounds like it's some sort of weird offshoot from that horrible programme put on the evening. Everybody gets their bits out, but it's nothing to do with that.
Mine were covered. It was daytime.
Yes, it was daytime and it was totally no bits involved. So it was very much focusing on tattooing and drawing and the artistic practice of tattooing, wasn't it?
Well, so, there was obviously people. It was more like amateur artists, and then you just had to draw each other. But I think the drawing each other element was because of COVID. Because I think C2's just been on and they've had models on. So
yeah. Of course, yes, the live, yes, of course. So, was there any of the other guests on the show that was also a tattoo artist, or were you the only one?
There was the guy who I was on with, actually, he was wanting to get into tattooing. I think now, because we obviously keep in touch and stuff, he's getting into tattooing now. So that's good.
That is good. But that was basically how we came across you at the Big Draw.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know us, the Big Draw does lots of different things, but we champion the value of drawing and visual literacy across different disciplines and sectors. Very much that polymathic approach that we've already touched on. And we do lots of advocacy and campaigning for the art, the role, the value of creativity in the curriculum and across both formal and informal education learning settings. But we also run our Big Draw Festival, which has a global presence, and we run the John Ruskin Prize and exhibition, which is UK-wide design, crafts, making and drawing and painting exhibition. So although we haven't done that since COVID for obvious reasons. So we have quite a lot of different plates that we are juggling. But today I'm talking to Glyn. So when we checked in before, didn't we? there was a number of areas that we hoped we wanted to touch on when we did the live session. And just so people who are coming in know to tell any friends or colleagues who maybe did want to listen to this, but maybe can't, because we know it's tricky to find a time that everybody can do. This is obviously live, it's being recorded live, and it will sit on the Big Drawers Instagram account as an asset. We will also, so people can revisit it there, we will also download it and then upload it to YouTube as well, so people want to watch it there. And what we can do as well then is we can download that as MP4, send you the recording, if you want to share it as well. And people can go and watch it at a later point on either Instagram or YouTube. So lovely to have people live with us always, because they can ask you questions, but it also has a sort of a bigger legacy than that, because it's all the people that can watch you afterwards. So in terms of where to start, so I mean we've touched on the show, but I think let's start with an obvious question, which is, I mean, I know where you are, but tell everybody where you are at the moment geographically. Where are you? Are you in your studio?
But I'm from Durham. There, and obviously I live around there as well. My shop's called Glyn Tattoo Studio, if anyone's interested. What Glyn means, it's like a play on words with my name and ink, like Glyn and ink. So I don't think not many shops will be called that. Different. Yeah,
and you've been based up there. I mean, you grew up around that area, and tell us a little bit how because you are. I mean, you draw, you sketch. It's every day, isn't it? Pretty much every day. You're scribbling.
I try and draw every day. So like I tattoo, and then if I can be asked, I'll draw afterwards. But then if I'm not tattooing, I'll definitely draw just to like keep at it. Because drawing, like, the more you draw, the better you kind of get, and obviously that'll lead into tattooing as well.
Yeah, you get your eye in. So. You're an avid drawer, so you're drawing every day, and obviously you've built your business around that with the tattooing. We're going to talk a bit about that. We're just rolling it back a bit, sort of to when you were. Let's go back to where it started. So you've obviously drawn a lot. You're passionate about drawing. You are a passionate drawer. That's why you're on the program, and you were doing that from an early age. So just tell us a bit about how you got into sketching and drawing. What it is about drawing. Just give people a bit of a feel for you and how you got into it. Obviously you're very creative, where it all started for you with school and everything else. Just start to tell your story a bit, and then we can start to unpick all the different elements.
Well, I've always drawn ever since I remember. Like I was like a chubby kid, and like maybe he's a bit of a loner at times, so like I always drew, and I used to want to be a cartoonist because I obviously love watching cartoons. So I saw cartoons, and then I kind of kept at it at school, and then that's when I started getting more into like drawing realism. Because when I was younger, my granddad used to always be like, you need to draw like a house or a person, and I'm like, no, I want to draw like Bugs Bunny, and but like I wish I listened to him now, because maybe I'd have been a bit more ahead of myself. So yeah, like obviously I wanted to be a cartoonist, and then kind of tattooing shows came out, because when you're a kid you don't really think about tattooing. Like my mum had them, but like I never saw her getting them or nothing like that, so I didn't really think of that as a job. And then like Ellie Ink, Mime Ink, stuff like that came out, and then that's kind of when I got into like thinking about being a tattooist.
Yeah, and I mean I know it's one of the biggest growing creative industries, isn't it? Really, it's I think when we touched on it before, I mean I remember thinking that I remember when I was okay, I was going to say it's my birthday next month, and I'm going to be very old next month. But I remember when I was younger, there was tattoo parlour, but there wasn't very many. And now, they're, especially if you're in a city or something, they're everywhere. It's a big business.
I'm literally on the street, and there's like me, then there's a girl up the road, Helen, and then there's like another guy, Martin. And so like, and we're pretty close to each other, but luckily we all have our own different styles. So like someone will come to me, and then if it's something I don't really do, I'll be like, oh, I go to Martin, I'll go to Helen. And I would do when you're doing the same. But I like to keep in touch with everybody. I think there's no point getting bitchy about things. There's plenty of people to go around. And
yeah. And in terms, that's right. I mean, going back to when you were a boy and growing up. So you talked about your passion for drawing and cartooning, and we can come back to that, because I know that you still have ambitions around all of that. That it would be good for us to talk about. I know. But I think it'd be lovely to hear a bit more about, I think about those early years, because I know that you've slogged hard to get where you are, and it hasn't all been handed on a plate, has it? Let's be honest. So it would be good to hear a little bit more about that and about, about school, at school. I mean, because I think the bottom line is you haven't gone through a traditional art school route, have you? So many, like you're self-taught, and there's so many artists and designers and creatives out there who are self-taught. More, it's becoming much more than perhaps it used to be, much more common than perhaps it used to be. Well, maybe people just didn't talk about it before, I don't know. But you had you took your own course, really. So
yeah.
So you were at school, you were at secondary school up in Durham?
No, Bishop, because I'm originally from like Crookwell, Lytton way. So when I got my shop, I moved closer to Durham because it's a bit easier. But yeah, so at secondary school, I was a naughty kid, a bit of a joker. I think that's how I found my footing. So I don't think the teachers really liked us very much, and they didn't really try at a certain point. Like I can always remember my maths teacher to like our group in GCSE was like, even if you get the highest grade, you're all fail anyway. So you may as well like not bother. They used to play golf games on like computer and have his coffees and that, and then we used to just talk amongst ourselves. The only classes I really stuck into was obviously art, media, and business. But even then, like the teacher obviously showed you a bit, but like I don't think they were like, I even went to college at one point, and I thought they'd be like sitting you down and showing you how to draw things or learning your skills, but they just said just draw that. So like I've always been like self-taught like that.
Yeah. I mean, without wanting to put too much about, is it fair to say you weren't necessarily given the support that you needed at that time at school?
Well, yeah, I was a little bit of a bugger. Like I was like, I was, and even when I was in sixth form, like obviously I joined sixth form and did like graphics art and stuff like that, and then like, I still thought I was above the law apparently, and like cheating. And then they were like, right, we're going to go around all your teachers and give you, if they want to give you one more chance, then you can stay. If not, you're out. So I was like,
was that the art teacher that helped?
Yeah, to go around my graphics teacher, business, and a few others because I still had to do maths because I failed and stuff like that. And then I thought I was like, oh, I'm not going to get kicked out. They all love me. And then like they called us in like the end of the day. I was like, right, you're out. So I was like, shit. So then I just got a job straight away at EBAC. It was like a factory. I did my work experience.
How old were you then when they kicked you out from school?
I'd have been 17.
Right. Yeah.
And then luckily I did work experience up the road from my school at a water cooler place.
Yeah.
I just applied for there straight away and I got in because obviously they knew I was a canny worker. And then that's kind of as it's progressed. I stayed there for a bit and then I went to Lidl. And then that's kind of when I built my shop up around Lidl and...
you basically, yeah, I mean, you got kicked out, didn't you? And then you thought, okay, what?
I don't...
Say that again?
Each to their own, but I don't recommend it.
No, but it's... Yeah. Maybe those teachers, wherever they are, if they could, it's working out all right now for you. I know you had to work very, very hard.
I was about 18. I did actually see them in Durham pub. I saw my graphics teacher.
Did you?
And someone else, I think it was head of year of Summit. And like I tapped them on the shoulder and I was like, you got me kicked out of school. And they zipped across the dance floor and legged it.
You ran away?
They ran away. They're like, all right, say that.
How weird. That is weird. But I mean, the bottom line is, so you got a job at Lidl and you worked hard and you slogged and you went to, did you also go do extra classes for business and?
Well, I passed
a number of different things at the same time, weren't you?
When I was at EBAC, the college was just down the road, so I went to do art. But I only did lessons because, like I say, I thought they would teach you stuff, but they were literally just sticking a log on the table and like draw that. And I couldn't go home, so like it didn't seem worth it because I was killing myself at work, rushing to. I think I had like 20 minutes to get from work to there on certain days, and it was a canny walk, so I had to leg it half the time. And then obviously I had to get the bus afterwards, and it was just not worth it. So so I didn't bother with that. And then, like I say, I got my job at Lidl, and then I looked into tattooing, got into tattooing, and then that's kind of, I built my shop up around working at Lidl. So I used to be like a duty manager there, and like I used to work on my shift, like after my shift or like on my days off to build my shop up with my name. And then until I've been like, I think I've been fully self-employed now for like 4 years, which out. Obviously, I'd like to be busier, but like I'm paying my way, so that's all right.
No, that's right. But I mean, you worked at Lidl to build up money, and then you managed to get the business off the ground, the tattoo business, didn't you? And you've been doing very well with it.
Well, now, obviously, to concentrate on my art, and like I was saying about, obviously we're doing comics and cartoons, and it just gives us more time to develop me like craft rather than working 40 hours at Lidl and then like cramming in a tattoo here, doing a little drawing here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so I just wanted people to have a bit of an understanding that the route that you've come in. And I think the question to ask, and I suppose it's a bit of a loaded question, but I think you'll see where I'm coming from, is, you lived with your mum, didn't you? So you grew up with your mum, and I know you talk about being very close with your mum. And is it, I mean, I think it's fair to say it wasn't necessarily the most privileged of background, you know. And I think it's very fair to say, and hopefully nobody would be offended by me saying this, is that, you know, the art world generally is often it is seen as being a bit of a closed shop, and, you know, certain ways in and people coming in from certain backgrounds. And then, of course, there's the whole, in terms of lack of diversity and, you know, gender, everything that's out there at the moment, that's out there anyway, is also obviously you see playing out in the arts world. So many of these kids, and plenty of people work hard and slog as well, but there's always going to be people that sort of glide into places because of who they know or what they know or where their parents or whatever, you know, that there's always that, isn't there? So it's not always a level playing ground, I suppose, is what I'm saying. So
I've always I think because for years, obviously, I've got 2 younger sisters now. Like one's coming up 17, I think next week. Oh no, next month. I got it wrong. And then one's like 14. So like for that like length of time, it was just me and my mum. So I've always had that driven side to like be like successful in like the cartoons before I like got into tattooing. Like I was writing cartoons, and I even sent one to like Disney at one point, like an idea with drawings, and then I got a letter back. Obviously, it was bad news saying basically we do not accept unsolicited ideas, blah blah blah. But it was nice to receive back.
At least they didn't ignore you.
Yeah.
You know, it's better than.
I still got the letter because it was like nice that they actually got back to us, because I've reached out to other people and they like less than what Disney is, and they don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
Yeah. But I think you're really sort of opening things up, and I love the work you do. And I wanted to talk a bit about where you've come from, because I think it's useful to put into context that, you know, your path, like everybody's path, is different, but yours has come down your own. You know, it's not necessarily a traditional do this, go to school, do A level. You know, there's lots of different ways of doing things, isn't there, and becoming successful. Yeah. So if there's people out there watching either live or maybe you'll watch this afterwards, you know, I think you would say, Glyn, you don't necessarily have to be kicked out of school to go down the path.
Yeah.
Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it doesn't have to be done in the traditional art school route. There are other ways of doing things. I think ambition. I mean, you're incredibly ambitious, and I know it sort of drips off you, and hopefully people will see that through the Instagram live as well. Yeah. But I know you're very driven, and you're still very young as well. So I think you're going to be.
I'm pushing the other way now, though. In my 30s.
Not really in the scheme of things at all. You've got your own business now and you're set up, and it will go from there. But we need to look at some of the other aspects. So if we start to look at a little bit now more about your actual practice, your arts practice. You know, you've talked about, obviously you're an avid drawer, you like to draw every day. And for those people who want to look at your drawing, your sketches, your tattoo designs, you're on Instagram, aren't you? So can you just tell everyone, and for the recording, what your Instagram tag is?
My Instagram tag's @GlynTattoo.
Yes. which is the same as your website, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, my website's Glyn Tattoo, and I think the Twitter is as well. I joined that for the show because there's a lot more chatter on that than...
Yeah. I mean, obviously Instagram's great because it's visual, but yeah, for Twitter's slightly different, isn't it, format, but still probably worth being on. And if people have a look at go onto Instagram and start following you, you like to use, well, it's black and white. It's very tonal, greys, charcoals. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? The colours, the materials, how you approach. I mean, not just the tattooing, the designs, but if you were going to do some sketches, a sketchbook or some drawings, what would be the medium that you might use if you were just maybe in the evening thinking, oh, I'm just going to do almost a mindful, I'm not even going to think about it. What would you use? Tell us a bit more about your practice, your creative practice.
Well, I think it's from when I was a kid, I just always drew with pencil, and I never really got like stuff like that. So I've always like drawn in black and white, and then I think that's what led into just being a black and grey artist, because obviously when you're drawing in tones, it kind of translates easier for me in touch as well, because when I try to colour with pencils and stuff like that, or paint even, I've been trying a bit, my head just blows up where like you try and use cool tones and warm tones, and it's not for me yet. I'm keep trying. So I just pencil all the way. Like I usually use a 2B, and then maybe for the dark I use like an 8B, and they usually just the two pencils I use, and obviously a rubber. And I tend to lean towards the fantasy side of it. So like I like the Gothic. I like to pick things out of religion as well, even though I'm not a religious person. I think some of the religious stories are quite like fantasy.
There's a lot of folklore inspired stuff, isn't there?
Yeah.
Folklore and mythology and legends and myths and all sort of swirled into one, not any particular. Yeah. I was looking at it, there's lots of different influences in there. It's not just Gothic. There is a lot of other pagan and mythological. There's a whole everything there. There's a real mixed bag in there, I would say.
Even history, like I love like the Greek mythology, like Egypt mythology.
There's a real, you can sense there's a love of almost of history there as well. Yeah, I think you can really see that in the work. So if you're drawing in a sketchbook or something, would you use charcoal or you just use pencil? Just pencil.
I've tried charcoal the odd time, and I even got this. It's like there's an artist who uses acetone to like squirt on the charcoal, and then it would make like this marbly-ish effect. So I used to do that a little bit, but now I use like pencil a lot, and I use like powdered graphite, and then use like water to make like water splashes and stuff like that. Give it a little bit more depth in certain areas.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that when you think about, to your younger self, with those kids that are maybe struggling a bit with more of a routine at school, more of a sort of established way of doing things or a traditional way of learning, and actually I do think that the education system, the personal level, and I won't get on a big soapbox here, does need to have a much broader way of delivering curriculum and core subjects in formal learning environments in schools. I think it is very rigid, and I think that lots of kids still don't find their way through for various reasons. So I do think it's still very...
Sometimes you're deemed as a bad kid early on, they tend to lose more interest.
As a bad kid, I think that it's not that helpful, is it? There is clearly...
Because I know, like,
a bad child, is it? There's other shit going on, excuse me, but there's other stuff that goes on in the background. So
when I was doing like me GCSEs and I was like getting more into my work, that's when I was like trying to like stick in a bit more, and then you could tell like they weren't like bothered by the time obviously I'd got to that point. Like my maths didn't care about none of us, and like English there was, so like obviously I did well in the ones that I liked. But I tend to like teachers that I liked, so I worked out that way.
No, I think that's so common of so many children. I mean, I know if I even just look at my own kids, not so much my younger daughter, who's very frighteningly, I must be brilliant at everything, but my older daughter, she's sort of head in the clouds a bit. If there's something that she loves history as well. She loves art, she loves science. Weirdly, she's good at things like just seems to be good at languages. And she'll just soak it up. But if she doesn't like it, she's bored by it, she just switches off. I'm not even gonna, she doesn't even try. And it's frustrating for me as a parent, seeing her switch off. And but I think then obviously I have to try and find ways to see if I can switch her back onto those things, or maybe the teachers can. But it's not easy, and it requires a different approach to that. You can't just keep doing the same technique at the school and you're going to get the same result unless you change the process. But I mean, I suppose what I was trying to say was, so sorry, I've gone around the houses with it, haven't I? But the point being, those kids are still out there. Those kids, those parallels of you as a younger self, they're still there, they're still struggling. And there are certain things, and it strikes me that if somebody was creative, and we know this from the Big Draw, when we go into schools and we talk about creative industries and creative careers, and you quite often you go and say, well, if you're good at drawing or sketching, you just like it. You don't have to be good at it, you just like it. All sorts of jobs out there in terms of design and architecture. And
I think
anime. They don't realise it, do they? But tattooing, I mean, you're going to sound like a right granny now if my kids listening, but isn't it a bit trendy? I can honestly, I can hear my children cringing at me downstairs going, Mum, don't use the word trendy.
Wait,
you know what?
each to their own. You want the tattoo. I would say there's always like young'uns turning 18 who want a tattoo just for the sake of getting a tattoo. And so in that sense, they can be trendy, but like then people get them for meanings, like things can happen and stuff like that.
As a business, it's people don't think about that. If you do like being creative, if you like drawing, if you like designing patterns and drawing and coming up with, designs, why not go from 2D? Because actually that's quite an interesting thing as well. It'd be good to explore that, taking a 2D flat image and thinking how that might actually work on the curve of an arm, because, there's all that to visualize to make it work in the way that you want it to look. It's not a 2D flat surface. So it's how that works, and it's a business. It could be a business, and it's like if you go into a school and you say, "Oh, we're going to do some drawing now," and they go, "Oh," or you go and you say, "Oh, we're going to design some skateboards. We're going to do we're going to make some new lovely skate. You're going to design. You're going to draw them." Oh, right, okay. And it's totally. It's not that different, but it is for them. So it's just. I think there are certain things like gaming, the tattooing, that they're going to appeal more to get kids in, rather than if you say, "Oh, have you thought about architecture? Have you?" Not please for people who are not dissing. I love architecture. And I joined us on this call earlier, but just thinking about how we engage with some of the younger audience to get them excited about some of these things. And
I think it's still
like good peer and role models. I think I really do.
I think art and like stuff like that. I think they shouldn't necessarily like mention like that kind of what you can get into jobs, because when I was at school and doing art, the only kind of jobs you could really think of is architecture, which I was out the door straight away because I'm shit at maths, and cartoonist and animation and stuff. But like you say, there's obviously makeup, that's like art in itself now these days, like create like crafts, obviously tattooing, and there's like all these different jobs you can like maybe say, "Oh, well, you could do this if you like get into art more." Because I know when I was at school, like most of the people did like just splash paintings, and like they didn't really like, because they thought it was an easy grade to get. Like, "Oh, I'll do art, it's an easy pass."
And it's been proved to be actually one of the hardest to get to high grades in art. Yeah, so I mean, I think there is something in all of that, isn't there? And it does strike me as you're talking as well that I do genuinely think, but I don't know if you've done it. I can't remember if you'd said you had, but I mean, I think, you would be brilliant going into like local schools, going local schools and just talking about what you've done and how you got there. And it's not going in, they're just like, "Oh, it's another old granny coming in to talk to us about, we have to work hard, we have to do this." But you're going in, you've got tattoos, you've done it a different, they need the right role models. I think that's what they need. They need a much more diverse range of role models, people who are ambitious, articulate, passionate about what they do, have that real sensitivity to their work and their art form, and also who want to make a difference. And you've got all of that in abundance.
I think with art as well, like it's the same with my sister. She's like good at makeup, but like she'll do something and then she's like, "It's rubbish." And I think it's more like what other people will think. And I think that's another thing when you're young, yeah, I think even like acting goes down that route as well. Like I think you sometimes can be scared of doing arts and stuff of that rather than like trying to fit in at school and drinking on the corner and stuff like that.
It is. Well, I mean, the most common thing, I mean, everyone in the Big Draw team knows this, it's the whole, I can't draw, honestly. You know, you hear it every week. Every time you do an event, you hear, and it's not just kids. To be honest, a lot of the grown-ups, in fact, the grown-ups often say it more than the kids. I can't draw, I can't do it, I don't want to try. And then you'll do an event, and often it'll be really simple. Even if you just put like an enormous roll of paper out or something and just maybe just put something on it just so it's not that enormous blank of nothingness, because that always intimidates people. And then you can almost see, often the kids, if they're younger, if they're sort of over, I would say, if they're my kids' age, they'll be a bit more, because they're so worried about being cool. But, you know, I'd say under sort of, 10, they're straight in. And then the grown-ups, you can see they're almost desperate to try. They need a bit of encouragement. And then they go in and they're sat there for hours, saying, oh, if only I wanted to do this when I was younger. I wanted to go to art school. I wanted to do this, but I had to do this. There's, you hear that story. It's tender penny, unfortunately. It always makes me very sad, really. But
even now, like sometimes I'll go through days and draw something and be like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Do you know, like you always pick out your own faults, but then other people will come in and be like, that's amazing. And I'm like, oh no, his nose is in the wrong place. His eyes too off. And they're like, shut up, you divvy.
But it's that obsession, isn't it, that the world has with particularly with like sketching, drawing, anything that's like that visual, that it's all about the end final polished product.
Yeah. Rather
than necessarily it being allowed to just be seen as a work in progress, or it's an unfinished piece and that's how it's meant to be seen. And it might be for you, so
that's what I was more like focused on, and also sometimes trying to make it so it looked completely finished. Obviously you have the time where you had an hour, and then before we even got cast it was supposed to be 40 minutes or 45 minutes at one point. And I think sometimes, like you should have just like been a bit more rough with it and this, that and the other, and a bit more loose.
Yeah. So, I mean, talk us through, because as you know, I don't have a tattoo, but I am thinking about getting one. One of my as I approach 50. Sorry, say that again.
Did you mention butterfly, or was it Sandra who said butterfly?
Oh, no, butterfly, no. No, I'm very specific. I'll tell you what I'd like, actually. It's a bit random. So it's a bit boring, I suppose, in as much as it's cat, which I know is very common, but it's a very specific cat, very specific. So there is a lovely shop, which Sandra does know. She's been in there with me before. And it's in Fitzrovia in London, and it is called Heels. It's a very famous institution, been going for a long time. And anyway, as you go in, it has this beautiful, I think it's probably like Art Nouveau or something. It's got like a lovely sweeping staircase, and you go through, it's all very sort of grand. And about halfway up the stairs, there's a cat, and they call it the Heels Cat. And it's a sculpture, I think probably 1920s, but I can't remember. And rubbish, because I can't remember the name of the artist, sculptor either. But it's on the side, it's been there forever, and they call it Heels Cat. And this is the cat I want. But so, there you go. It's like a elongated, stylized Art Nouveau type cat, but it has to work. Well, let's talk about that, because it has to work obviously at an angle and everything. So, but let's talk through. So, I mean, somebody does come to you; they want a tattoo. So they come to you and they say, "I want a cat," or and you go, "Oh God, that's boring." Or how does it work? Do you give them ideas, or do they often come to you and have a very specific idea of what they want? And what's the process for that? Do you have an artistic process, or is it all by template?
So like I would, if someone comes, they'll maybe say, I want something like this, and then I'll work that as like a reference and make my own design from it.
Yeah.
But then like other people work differently, and I always like to show them it like a week or two in advance, so they know exactly what they're getting. So when they come, there's no like, even though there's something, there's no like, oh, can you change this? Can you do that? I don't like it, because I like to be organised. Like I start at 11 o'clock, but I'm up by like in my shop by 9, and I'm like basically tinkering on by 9, setting up, ready. So like the worst thing for me would be someone coming in at 11 o'clock, be like, right, I want that to be that, like that instead of that, I'd be stressed a bit. So I like to show them what it wants, and then they tend to like, obviously if they say I want colour, I'm like, oh wait, I just do black and grey. I'll be happy to do it in black and grey, but if not, you go somewhere else. And I tend to do more like realism, like illustrations, like pictures, rather than, I don't really tend to do a lot of like geometric patterns and stuff like that.
Much, you know, you can go from a template or something they want, but you know, you're coming up with the ideas. You know, they say this is sort of one, you could draw it and help design. You could design it, basically. Yeah.
And then you get for
tattoo artists, do they work differently, or do some more templates, and how does it tend to? Because I don't really know.
Like some people work by flash, so they'll have like a wall of like tattoos, and then someone will just come in and go, oh, can I have that?
Right.
Sometimes it can be like loads of designs what other people can have, or like artists can make their own flash sheets, and then like one of a kind more of that. I know, and then so obviously there's walk-in shops where you go in and just say, can I have this? And then there's booking ones, like I got mine off a really good artist called Jack Connolly on my hand, and he was like, he just designed it on the day. So like I turned up, we talked about what I want, and then he designed it, showed us it, and then tattooed us. Which I could not work like that. Just know the stress of it in case they didn't like it.
Yeah, it sounds like your approach is very collaborative. You know, you're basically, you're coming up with a design. It's almost like a commission, like you might for a painting or something.
Yes.
Coming up with something that is bespoke, that especially for them. It's not just an off-the-shelf job, and it's tweaked and tailored so that it's got exactly right for that individual. It's a very
and I would say most artists are typically like that, in the sense of they try and make it one of a kind, so no one else has kind of got it. And there is the same kind of photographs in everyone what people use, but then you mix it with different things, and it's never the same.
No, absolutely. Very, very interesting.
But I would
bit on the pigments as well before for the tattooing, and could we just tell a little bit more? People are often interested in materials and how the pigments are. You buy them in, don't you? Because I think what I was curious to know is in terms of sustainability, and I read a bit about this, and I was reading actually that the black and grey pigments are more sustainable and last better than some other colours. So I don't know whether that's...
Personally, I think black and it does like stand the test of time if you're using like the right ones. I think if you colour, you have to go to like a person who does colour.
Yeah.
And I think if you go to someone who doesn't really do colour, and it can sometimes look a bit...
Well, I've got friends that have had them, and they're older and they've had them a long time, and you'll look at them and they'll be a bit like, oh, well, it didn't used to look that colour. And like the green's gone like a sort of sludge colour.
Yeah.
And they probably have to go and have it redone or something, I don't know. So yeah, it's faded over time. So the body doesn't, I don't think the body reacts as well to the colour.
Some colours, and like you get it lasered, some of the colours tend to like take longer to get rid of, and I'm positive, I don't hold this to this, but I'm positive red, you can't get rid of red if you had a red tattoo. Right. Maybe I've got that wrong, I don't know. But I know black's the best, like you can get rid of black pretty quick. It's usually to take time to get out. Yeah.
So just thinking about tattoos, and I ran out of time before I came on school. I actually wanted to look it up to have a specific, to try and sort of show off and show and say, oh, I've got a date here, but I didn't have time. But we did touch on it last time, and tattooing is nothing new, is it? Tattooing has been around for thousands of years, and obviously people have been tattooing each other in all cultures for a very long time, and there's examples all around the world, and human remains in all sorts of museums and collections where you can visibly see them where they are, particularly if you look at them with infrared and things. You can really see some quite extraordinary and very ornate tattooing, often over all the body, or very sort of symbol based, or to do with tribes. I mean, this isn't a new thing. I know tattoos become incredibly popular in the last sort of 15, 20 years, much more than it was when I was little maybe. But this isn't anything new. And I think there's something interesting that's sort of come back, but it's always been there.
Yeah, I think it's just become more mainstream. You know, like with obviously, I think it was at the point when like you started seeing celebrities getting them. You know, when I was younger, and like David Beckham had them all, and this, that, and the other, and then that's kind of probably where it kind of became more popular to everybody.
Yeah, that's right. That was one of the things that we touched on the other day, wasn't it? Was because I was saying to you, it has become more mainstream, and I think also people these days don't really bat an eye if they see somebody, well, male or female. They don't bat an eye these days if you see somebody who has a lot of tattoos. But when I was little, they did, and they also were very judgmental when I was little.
They still are.
It was that whole, if you were little, well, I mean, it's awful. I can remember my mother, you know, mother going, "Oh, we'll cross over the road," and it was when I was little. I was like, "Well, why is it?" They said, "Oh, there's somebody over there, and he's got a tattoo on his arm," and it was that sort of thing. If you had a tattoo, you were either a sailor or a gangster, or if you're a woman and you had one, you were probably a prostitute. You know, and I mean, it's so ridiculous, but that was the sort of mentality in the part of sort of, I won't say where it was, but in the part of North Yorkshire at that point when I was probably about 9 or 10 growing up. There wasn't that many people that had tattoos. There wasn't the David Beckham trend with the men. You just didn't see it, or if you did, people were really judgy about it.
Yeah, I know. When I
such a different world now.
I worked a little, like obviously all the old little biddies, and they used to come in, and they used to like at the end of it, it's not like when I first started, they were a bit like put off. But then once I was like leaving, obviously 6 years down the line, they were like, "Oh, I wish like you stayed," because like I was the one who was having a bit banter with them, and you know, like having a bit of joke and laugh, and the other ones were miserable as sin. So I don't think you should judge people by the tattoos. But I have been in Lidl a few times after I left, and then there was this one time a woman like actually stopped one of the people, like, and was like, "This guy's following us around the shop," but it was only because I was talking to like the people who I used to work with. And then as they were going in and out the back room, I was like pottering on, and it was.
So they thought you were dodgy.
Hey?
She thought you were dodgy.
She thought I looked dodgy because I was just like. And then like as I was walking down an aisle, she was walking up one, and like I could see her looking at us, but obviously face tattoos, like people sometimes look anyway just to see what they are. And then as we were in the till, she was in the till, and I was like a few behind her, and then she asked like the person on the till, "Oh, can you help get us someone to walk us to my car?" So they all come running, saying like someone's following us, and then they saw it was me, and like, "Oh, that's just Glyn. He used to work here." And she was like apologised, obviously, and was like, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Like, I shouldn't have. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't really care."
But it's interesting. So it's interesting that does still happen.
And to be honest, she had tattoos. Do you know, like it wasn't like a woman who looked prim and proper. She had like a lip piercing, tattoos, and she was more put off by my tattoos than like people without.
It's funny because you'd think that people wouldn't even anymore, but I mean, one can only hope that it's a lot better than it was certainly when I was a child.
I kind of got out a little because of my face tattoo, a little bit.
Well, I think I suppose maybe there is still a bit more of not a taboo, but maybe a bit more of a second glance if people have got them on their face. That's probably still. I don't think people would double glance if somebody anywhere these days. Certainly not in London. I mean, God. But I suppose if you're walking down the street and somebody had, all over their face, I mean, literally covered, you might turn around and you might say, "Oh, look at," you might. But otherwise, I don't think so.
Well, there used to be a guy who used to come in Lidl, and he was bald. I think he was like a bit of a punk rocker, tattoos all over his face, and he was proper, like eloquent, like polite. Do you know, like, just not like, but to look at him, you'd have probably thought, "Oh, like he's covered in tattoos." Do you know what I mean? It's probably the same with me. People look at me, I'm bald, and like got tattoos, and then they probably think, "Look at that thug." And then like once I open my mouth and start talking, they're like, "Oh, he's not going to hurt a fly."
Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it? People shouldn't. It's sad to hear that they still do. But I mean, that's when we've talked about. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
It's definitely getting better. Obviously, you can tell that.
Yeah.
And when you go to conventions, like it's a family affair. Like when I first started going, I never realised how like kid friendly they were. They have like bouncy castles, like face paint and stuff like that. Like it's more like family orientated rather than like just a bunch of adults getting tattooed and drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah, I would. I think I definitely wouldn't drink if I was getting my tattoo done, because I might be tempted.
But people do when they're there.
Yeah, I bet they do. I bet they do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so we've sort of talked around your route into, and we've talked about your arts practice. And I mean, do you tend to keep sketchbooks when you're working up a design? How do you develop your designs?
I tend to just buy like big paper from Jackson's Art, and then I'll put it down, and then my couch is like a little bit off my wall, and then down the back of my couch is literally just papers just chucked, and then piles of artwork. So God knows what spiders and that's living down there, because I don't think I've been digging around in it for like years. So that's how I kind of do it. I have tried having sketch pads, but it goes back to when you think you're doing rubbish, and then that one picture you hate, I'm like, that sketch pad's ruined, and I like chuck it.
I'm sure that's very common. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, let's think a bit about where you are now and what next. I think we've got about 15 minutes left. So you did the program, you've got your business is doing well, your arts practice is developing, getting lots of clients.
Hopefully more.
What else do you want to do?
Well, over lockdown, I started getting into the cartoon animation side again, looking into that. And then I contacted a production company, he's done a couple of cartoons from like when I was a kid. We had a little Zoom call, and then I've just been like pitching him ideas ever since. So I think I've sent him about 4 ideas up to now, and they've been like aimed at young kids. So I did one like aimed at like kids, like babies kind of, then like pre-teens. The other one was like the same kind of pre-teens, I think. And then this one I'm working on at the moment, I'm going to go like the adult, older teen route, more like South Park, like Rick and Morty-esque. Maybe my sense of humour might lean that way a bit more with the script writing, because like I say, I'm not the best writer. I think I'm a bit like thing with me writing skills. So like I've been like learning that as I've been doing it over lockdown, reading and watching YouTube videos on how to write scripts properly. And luckily, when I send stuff, they tend to give us a little bit of feedback, saying like, "Oh, wait, these characters seem a bit more developed than these, and this, that, and the other." So each time, I think I'm getting better and better. So hopefully, this time when I send this script off, it's a go and we get it started development, because he's like worked with like Netflix and stuff like that. So I know it could be my way in. It's just him seeing my vision as well.
Yeah.
I'm all right drawing it down. It's, the writing part where they have to read.
Absolutely. So, I mean, graphic novels, cartoons, that sort of thing, that's, so are you, so if somebody would say to you, what do you need? Glyn, what do you need? Is it a collaborator? Is it a publisher? Is it funding? What is it that you would say to people that you need? What would be useful? If there's any, I mean, God, if there is, then the big tour will jump on them if there's any millionaires on the
Lottery, I want to win the lottery.
But if there is anybody, you never know. You're going to see it afterwards, do you? If you were to say, what would you be looking for? Because your creativity is coming out of you, and it needs to go somewhere. I know that from talking to on a number of occasions, and we need to. It needs to be.
I think
you need to come through.
Not to sound like big editor now, but I think I've got like the drive, and I've got the passion, and I've got like the creative.
You have, absolutely.
To say it again, I think I've said it about 40 times, but I just need someone like to kind of open that door. Like the right person, the right time. I know usually you hear people when they've made it and they say this one person did it. I just need that one person to come knocking on my door, and hopefully. Speaking, I've spoken to Fred a few times on Zoom, and like over email and stuff like that. And like he does seem like he's willing, as long as the project's good for him as well. And I have.
It comes from the most unexpected, random places. Those sort. You talk about that opening of a door, and you can't see where it's going to come from necessarily. It may be just like, oh, total, you know, kind of blindside coming in from. So yeah, I mean, as I say, this will go onto YouTube. It will sit on Instagram. So that would be my question, I suppose, to you: is it a publisher? Are you looking for someone to?
Comic-wise, like one of the cartoons, when he sent it back and said, "Oh, well, this isn't what we're looking for," I did then try and like look into the comic book route. So I started doing 2 pages of that on my iPad, and I think I sent it to Dark Horse Comics, but it's a bit too, do you know, like Sonic the Hedgehog like esque, where I think Dark Comics are more like Hellboy. So maybe I need to go a different route. But I've got like loads of different ideas what I want to work on. It's just like getting them in the right format for them to see what I've got doing. Because like I say, I've got the drawing down. It's more like for you to read what I'm selling, basically.
Yeah.
In form or like comic form. Because even when you write a comic, you still need to write it as all like the dialogue and the like the blurbs, what's happening in between scenes and stuff like that.
But bottom line is, you don't need a writer. You just need someone to be able to put into words what your story is. You've got the story, the narrative. You've got the graphic story. So it sounds like you've written the stories through drawings in your head and in the ideas. And because I mean, this is an interesting one. One of the people we did one of these with probably about a year ago now, with Depot, who's had a number of amazing books come out. I remember having this really incredible chat with him, and it's such a simple idea, but actually it was sort of at the time like, God, yeah, that's so true. So many books, and books for children are obviously very visual by their nature. That's how children are learning the words and the visuals together. And yet so the visuals are so important, and the visuals tell the story for kids in so many ways. And yet they usually come after the words. So it's really lovely from a more of a graphic novel approach, where somebody, the artist, the creative person, you've got the ideas, the vision, the visuals come first. They tell the story, and then there's a collaborator. They're not really the writer, are they? They're coming and they're putting the words to the pictures, but the pictures have already told the story.
I know when I spoke to Fred,
that's what you need in a way.
When I spoke to Fred and I was like, oh, so how would it work if you, like my idea? And he said it goes a number of ways, but when I've been reading into it, I think he's a producer, animation producer. So like he would then have like my story and then create, like bring in writers to make it more developed, and maybe they might change things, but then it becomes more of a collaborative piece. Yeah. But then the guy, he's like the middle guy to go to the network, because I've reached out to like networks like BBC and stuff like that, but they always want on like a producer or like an agent even to as a man. And I've even reached out to agents, and then they sometimes say, well, you need someone else. So like there's never like that one definitive answer.
Oh yeah. And I know that already, so I know we're not going to get into this now, but I know you're very canny in terms of all of your IP and protecting your brand and everything. You're very up on all that. So, you know, just as you're talking about bringing all these other people in, you don't want people running off.
Yeah, obviously.
But I'm very good at protecting.
It's a crazy thing, because obviously you get it out there, but then you're kind of scared to who to tell in case, because you hear things getting stolen. Like even when I send them to like friends, whether I'm always trashed to death, and in emails I send, I always save the email. I always copyright it, and I even phoned the copywriter from UK, the place, to ask how it would go about it. And apparently in UK, to copyright things, all you need to do is stamp it, date it, name it. You don't have to pay for no licensing or copywriting, as long as it's not a product. So like any story-wise, this, that and the other, as long as you've written copyright, name, date, it's basically yours. As long as you can prove it was before them.
Excellent organisations, isn't there, as well? That nice. And I know this isn't an IP copyright meeting, but maybe we do need to do another big draw on that. But it's still, I flag it because I know that you're up on all of that. But it just to say, it is obviously a very important aspect as well when you're putting stuff out there that is new, and you're bringing a lot of new parties in to the table. Yeah.
But if I was to get something signed off, and I wouldn't care who was coming in, to be honest. But like I say, I think if I was to get in with the right people, the right time. I think that's all it takes. It's just finding it. And I don't take no easy. Like Instagram's a good thing to reach out to people. Half the time you don't hear from them, but like it's even if they say sorry, we don't accept this. Sorry, we don't help people. At least they get back to you, and then I'll try the next person. I think you always have to try. I try and tell this to my sister. Like just because you get a no, it doesn't mean it's a no. It just means it's a no for now. It's not a no forever.
Hard, isn't it? We've all, it's hard when you get rejected. But you're right. I think it's so much better, isn't it, when at least you get, even if it's a no, if someone comes back and says no, and these are the reasons why, than if you just get ignored. So, yeah, for sure. But I mean, that's what I love about you is that you're going to keep you'll hit the mark at some point.
Next time we talk, hopefully I've got me cartoon on the telly. You've come for your tattoo.
I know I'll be coming up to see you to get my, random cat tattoo.
I'll have to Google the cat statue because surely there'll be.
Yeah. It's nothing. It's just I don't know. It's just I just really like the line, the shapes of it. It's just it's very stylish.
I've got Marks and Spencers on my arm for me nana. No, like it's a remember. Yeah.
Oh.
Like instead of getting like R.I.P. because I've got like granddad and like a rosary for when he died, and my nana like shopping at Marks and Spencers, so I just got the Marks and Spencers logo instead.
I'm just saying, because I think Sandra just sent me a mess. Oh no, she's put the thing on though. Oh, I thought she had a question, but it just keep going, Glyn. So I mean, yes, people. We're coming into the last sort of 5 minutes, but we've already said, haven't we? Do follow. We've talked about your website. We've talked about where to follow you. And also, I should also say that if people wanted to, if you don't know much about the Big Draw, we're on everything. We're on all the usual LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. And we have 3 websites: Big Draw main website, John Ruskin exhibition website, and our shop, which Sandra runs, online shop. So we're very easy to find. So do start following the Big Draw as well. And sign up for our newsletter, as well as make sure that you follow Glyn. But just in the last few minutes, so I mean, what I wanted to say really was to Glyn, any final words or top tips, anyway, anything that you want to end on. But then let's just see if there's anybody that wants to have any questions. Oh, I can see Sandra's just put in Mandy.com for a producer or other creatives, and then she's put, that's because you're a witch, Kate, and the cat is your familiar. Thanks, Sandra.
Put a little hat on it.
So yes, do you want to, or maybe there's any?
I always say to me, like, just don't give up. Do you know, like if you've got something you're interested in, whether it be art, acting, whatever, I would just say never take no for an answer and just go for what you want to do. Because it can be a struggle at times, but you'll get there. And like I know I'm not like, I haven't reached my peak yet. I know there's still a long way to go with me tattoo and me art and everything else. But like, you just keep at it.
Yeah. And I know I've said it before. I think you need to go into schools, talk to the kids.
Well, maybe
about design and different ways of doing things and getting into creative roles, and that there's different ways of doing things. I think you'd be a brilliant role model.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I mean, especially, and you've got that sort of strange kudos, because you can say, well, you know what, I was kicked out of school, but ... and immediately you've got them. Them. Anyway, I've seen that gone into schools, and we've brought people in from different sectors, whether it's somebody who is an artist or a designer or a scientist or whatever it is that they're doing, and you can start off. And I can do the whole introduction, say, how passionate about drawing and all the rest of it. And, half of them might be interested and be thinking, you can see they're sort of engaging, and the other half just really can't be asked. And then the guest person that we've brought in from an industry, the industry specialist, says, okay, so I'm a designer, and, for example, I am a fabric designer, and I design textile design and pattern design for clothing, and ... show some pictures. Here is one that was on the catwalk last week. Here is one of my designs that a newsreader was on the telly, and you can see they all are all a bit like, what? Sorry? And they wake up. We had somebody from Marvel once, and they're all a bit like, you know, they were about 50 and they were just like, yeah, whatever. And then he said, so I did the storyboard for Marvel, and here's the story, and you could see them all when the film had come out the week before.
I didn't
Really, they were just transfixed, and they were asking him, how did you get into it? I love drawing. How do I do this? Could you earn proper money? Blah, blah. They were just switched on, you know, and they need to have that. They need to have the right role models, I think.
Yeah.
The creativity is there. It's just, you know, it needs the right people who are in industries that they can recognise, that they aspire to, that are fun, that it's done in a playful way, it's done in an accessible way, it's not too dry. Otherwise, you're just going to lose them.
I think when you're a kid, you're told that you're not going to make money from art. I remember when I was...
You still get told that now, and unfortunately, a lot of our politicians here in power commission reports to collect data that they would say demonstrates, you know, it's all done on money, isn't it? You know, don't do this degree because within 5 years' time you won't be earning and you're not contributing towards the economy, and all this absolute rubbish. As if what you do in your life, I'm not saying that earning good, you know, money and earning a salary to live, I'm not saying that's not important. Of course it is. Let's not be silly. You need money to live and, you know, to have a reasonable quality of life. But to suggest that your entire existence is measured in terms of what you earn in your salary is absolute rot. Yeah. And very worrying that that would be a message peddled by the powers that be. But you know, it
was the same a little bit like, to be honest, when I first started, there was a manager I used to work with, and then there was like the head of, like, who used to run all the shops. She was like the head of head, and he was like, oh, don't look her in the eyes, like, you're not allowed to speak to her unless she speaks to you. Like, and he had like this weird, like, if they were like authority kind of like thing, you know, like, because they weren't making more money, you had to be like, I said hello straight away. I was like, you all right? Do you want a tattoo? Like, oh.
Yeah.
And she was fine. She was nice as pie, you know. Like, I think he just had this weird, like, but I think some people do. Like, if you make more money, there's like this weird, like, you have to respect them more and this, that, and the other, and which isn't always the case. Sometimes they're not very nice.
But if in, you know, the powers that be are sort of undermining courses that, you know, for whatever reasons are undervalued or underfunded, and saying, well, it's really pushing young people into areas of study and potentially and probably careers that they are going to hate, and they're not going to stay in, and they're not going to thrive in, and they're not going to contribute towards the economy that way. And to see it in such a one-dimensional way rather than a much sort of in the round picture about how one contributes towards society other than a monetary value is incredibly short-sighted in my opinion. There's one from Sandra. Does Glyn have any plans to set up his own e-course on realism or a Patreon account? Good question.
What was that, sorry?
Patreon. So do you have so any plans to start your own e-course on realism or is it Patreon or Patreon? I never know how to say it.
Wait, I've seen that. Is it Patreon?
Patreon.
But like,
the one where you sign up and support you, and you know.
Yeah. I just feel like I'm at that level yet where like I feel like I'm not worthy of a Patreon because people pay you.
Oh, kidding me. Oh dear.
Yeah, but I have thought about starting like a YouTube channel and like doing like drawings and like tattooing, but it's getting like it's just basically getting a setup right and stuff like that, you know, like for your shop and making sure it's not going to like fall on your person or your tattoo, you know, like the camera angles and stuff like that. But I have definitely thought about it. I even got a camera over lockdown for photos of me tattooing to help us with better video quality. So that's definitely something I've thought about doing.
You should do it. That whole I am not worthy, that is silly.
But I feel like people that, like, who are in the art world will be like, what the hell's he thinking? He's just...
No, it's that thing that people talk about a lot, that whole imposter syndrome thing, which is very common, isn't it? People talk about a lot. Just do it. A lot of the people that are saying that, well, and I'm not going to say anything, but they're probably not, you know, they're not really great probably themselves. No, you just do it. As Sandra says, just do it.
Do it. Why not?
Just do it and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, that's true.
you know, it's not.
I know I was speaking to a few months back, and we were talking about like ideas for like, it was kind of like just for TV and stuff. And she was like, "Oh, you're on TikTok," and I was like, "Oh, wait, I am for me drawing and stuff." But she was like, "Oh, wait, I would start another one and like just talk, do you know, like, because you seem like real, relatable, like people can kind of, I like." She said, "I've only been talking to you 5 minutes and I feel like we're friends, you know." So she said, "I think you should do that and you could become like popular on TikTok." And then I was like, "Wait, I just wouldn't know how to start it." It's kind of one of those things. I'm not, once we get talking, but it's just not like me sitting down going, "Right, I'm going to talk about this."
Oh, you could easily do it. Or you could just invite a guest to come on with you, just sort of a bit like this. Someone, then you've got someone to push back against and just bounce off a bit. That's all you need. And you just you can just go.
I was going to call it Glink and Drink. So I was going to like draw. I was going to
drink and draw, Glink. Yeah,
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I was going to like sit down with somebody, maybe it's like celebrity-ish, and like I'd be drawing them as I was talking to them, and like we'd talk about this, that, and the other, and then by the end of it, I'd have like a sketch for them to take away. But then when I'm reaching out to people, do you know, like there's just no comeback.
Well, I suppose it depends who you're sort of people that you're trying.
Yeah, but it's kind of that weird thing where you're trying to get celebrities who people want to watch. And I'm not really into TikTok, but I suppose if you were to look at people on TikTok, they like famous, but they're not like TV famous, and they might more likely be willing. Yeah. So maybe I should go that route and maybe try that and become more like a TikTok collaborator.
Well, I think content, creative, you know, your own creative content is always, is very popular, isn't it? And I think the lady or the gentleman that you just referenced there, I think they're right. You are, I think you come across very well. You know, you saying that they said you were real, and you know, you're very personable and you're authentic, and you stick to what you want to do and what you think. So I'm not seeing any more questions at the moment. So unless there are any more questions, we're a little bit over time, and I know it's very warm. So let's start to wrap it up between us. Unless there's anything else you want to end on, Vim.
Just thanks for having us on. Nice speaking to you, because I know, are we allowed to say, like, are you not, that it's your last time you're leaving?
Oh, well, I haven't said anything. No, it's fine. It may well be for this. It may well be my last Instagram live, potentially at the Big Draw. Might well be. We may possibly have another one later this week. We're not quite sure yet, but it might be. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll be doing lots of others. I already do lots of others actually for some other.
You might find your way back in.
More charity commitments, so that I'm involved in. So I still do quite a lot of content on with other organisations. But yeah, no, we'll see. We'll see what happens next. But I'm sure that the Big Draw will want to stay in touch with you.
Oh, definitely. And like,
sure, you know, whether it's online workshops or maybe a sketch crawl, or I know, tattoo competition, online tattoo competition with kids, or you know, draw one of our patrons. We get one of our patrons on a call with you, have a drink with them, you draw. You know, there's all sorts. I mean, I think I would say drop us an email, and you know.
We are more do stuff if, like, obviously if they can fit us in. What obviously you think of anything, like when you say you go to schools or something, I'd be happy to say there's things you can do with art and this, that, and the other. If it is.
Yeah, no, I think we can definitely. We'll follow up. We can follow up by email.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all right, lovely. Thank you so much for your time. We're over. I hope that's all right. What we'll do is we will, as I said, we'll upload it onto YouTube. It'll sit on our Instagram account, and we want everyone to share it, don't we, Glyn?
Share it. I might get a picture out of it.
And sign up to the Big Drawers website. Make sure that you start following Glyn both on Instagram and Twitter, please. Yes. And if anything that either of us has said in the last hour or so resonates, or you think, oh, you know, that might work, or they should reach out to you, shouldn't they? You know, they should get in touch with you. And if they wanted to email you, I presume your email address is on your website.
My email's on my website, and it's on my Instagram as well. DMs are a bit fishy because sometimes they go into like a different folder, and then like, unless you're following them, sometimes you don't see them. So, like, it's best to email. It's Glyn, I think it's Glyn Tattoo Booking at outlook.com, but it's on you.
But it's on.
It's on me.
So if anybody's got ideas or ideas for collaborate or wants to think about producing a new graphic novel or producing something or
Want a tattoo?
want a tattoo, whatever it might be, they should get in touch with you.
Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolute pleasure, as always, to talk to you. Sorry about the perpetual fan, but it's either very faint, which is not a good look.
I'm freezing out.
We'll stay in touch anyway. We can separately stay in touch anyway, apart from anything else.
Right, definitely. I think I follow you on Instagram, so if you're not with Big Draw, I'll see you on there. And...
Absolutely, yeah.
Great.
All right, then. Have a lovely evening. Thank you, everyone, who joined us, and yes, we will see you on the channel another time soon.
Bye. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Now, how would you get this off?